Welcome to the Jacksonville Momcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the real stories of local Jacksonville moms. Sponsored by Jacksonville Beach Moms, each month we'll cover topics to help you navigate mom life on the First Coast. Thanks for joining us as we tackle all things motherhood and more with a focus on the 904.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to kick off season 4 of Jacksonville Momcast, and we have a very special first episode. I have not one guest, not two guests, but 3 guests with us today, and they are Kim Kelly, Sara Price, and Bridget Erskine. Thank you, Bridget. And they are all photographers here in North Florida. And so we're going to talk to them a little bit about photography and also being moms in North Florida. And I just want to preface this. We do so many interviews, and one of the things that people constantly highlight is the importance of building a community within your business and how that just should take precedence over competition. And these 3 women are just doing such an amazing job supporting each other. And I'm just so excited to hear about their journey. So let's kick it off by you guys each telling us a little bit about yourself and your family and your photography business.
Yeah, awesome. I'll go ahead and kick it off. So I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Shannon, for having us. We're all really excited to be here. My name is Sara. So I run an awesome family photography business called Sara Price Photography. I have 2 amazing little ones. They're 4 and 2, so they're still really itty bitty, an awesome partner. You know, we just love getting outdoors and enjoying the fresh air together. So you can always find us, at the beach or on a bike trail or camping. We're really in this season right now of just soaking up one another and enjoying, big full moments and minutes together, which the photographs I love and the photographs I really love to take for families is definitely a direct reflection of that and just those values. So I'm really excited to hopefully talk a little bit more about that too, and just share more about this awesome photography journey that we're on.
Hey, I'm Kim, and I grew up in Jacksonville and live in Neptune Beach with my husband. I've got 2 teenage children that are really into soccer, so I'm often on the side of a soccer field. We've got a couple of golden retrievers, including a puppy right now. It's been super fun. My background is in school counseling. I was a school counselor at a couple of schools out at the beaches, including Seabreeze, where Shannon's kids were students, and that's how we met. And I also have a background in teaching families mindfulness. And then I went into photography, which has always been a passion of mine. My big interest right now is photography. I also enjoy running and being outdoors, and I'm just super excited to be a part of this friendship group with Sara and Bridget that we've met and started really hanging out a lot recently and able to just run ideas past each other. We're kind of into the same sort of photography and have a lot of similarities. So it's been really helpful and just energizing to my business to have these 2 ladies in my life.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Bridget. My photography business is Bridget Gabrielle Photography. I'm a St. Augustine native, one of the unicorns, sort of. So I'm raising my 3 kids, Lila, Harbor, and Odette, and our 4 cats and 2 crazy dogs here in St. Augustine. I would describe my photography style as emotive, vibrant lifestyle. I specialize in a lot of types of photography: family, maternity, seniors, couples, and then I do a couple weddings a year. And so I've sort of always loved photography. It started out more as a hobby when I was a kid with like a Polaroid, and then in high school. And so my journey into photography, it sort of started out when I became a mother. Like I think a lot of us, we just want to document everything. My oldest daughter, Lila, was diagnosed with progressive infantile scoliosis at 5 months old, which is a brittle form of scoliosis. So she was doing surgeries every 8 weeks and that sort of thing. So I really, at the time, just wanted to document every moment, just realizing how precious being a mother and having children are, but her situation made it a little unique. And then as I had two other kids, and she sort of got on the other side of that and is in a better place now, I realized, I wanted to turn it into a business. And so try to help other people document these moments that go by so quickly. And yeah, that's what led me into photography. And then I'm so fortunate to have met Sara and Kim. They've really, changed my life for the better. I feel like people are put into your life for certain reasons. And so I'm just so happy to have friends, as moms, it's kind of this isolating journey. Sometimes you get kind of lost in it. And then as a business owner too, it's kind of the best of both worlds to have these friends that you can throw ideas off of, and then also have as like therapists that you can vent to. So yeah, that's my journey into it. And I'm just so thankful to be here and with my friends also.
Fantastic. Bridget touched a little bit on her journey to take her love of photography into a business. For Sara and Kim, what kind of led you to that, making the leap into an actual business for your photography?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So I definitely had a film camera. So this, Sara, I know maybe you don't know my voice yet, but so I definitely had a film camera that I loved in elementary school. And I remember I'd set up like bed sheets as a backdrop and take photos of our house cats and like neighborhood friends and things like that. And I loved scrapbooking. I would probably, like destroy our family photos, our beautiful heirloom quality family photos, and cut them up and put them into scrapbooks. So loved that, kind of had it in my heart from the get-go. But fast forward, let's see here. So when I found out I was pregnant with my first, I was going through that, and I won this maternity photo session, I think through Instagram or something. Yeah, I think it was Instagram. So I won this photo session, and the photographer, who ended up turning out to be like my mentor and good friend later down the road, she did this session for me, and it was so relaxed and it was so comfortable, and the photos were so special. And I remember her leaving and thinking, wow, I can do that. I mean, I could do this. I could go hang out with an expecting mama in her home, and I could totally do this. And so I got my first camera and started offering free shoots, which is like a great way to start. And just to friends, to build my portfolio up and figure out how to use a camera, because I had no idea. I mean, I had a film camera, but before, years prior. So I had no idea, and I did that. And probably within a year, I started to get some paying clients, and which is awesome. I remember just being so stoked on that. And then in 2020, I lost my job of 11 years, which I know, it was just one of those years. And it was a week after finding out I was pregnant with my second. So it was a big humbling year for sure. And my partner and I, we decided, like, I remember just sitting there we were like, look, once this baby comes, let's move, let's start fresh and give my photography business the biggest go we can. Because I knew other people were doing it. I've seen other moms supporting their family with photography, and I thought I can do that. So let's see, we're going on year 3 now of my partner being a stay-at-home dad and my photography business sustaining us. So that's a bit about my journey. And I mean, really, it's been probably just a few years. A lot's happened in a few years.
That's amazing. I love hearing Sara talk about that. It's so exciting to hear, that your photography business can really get to that point where you're able to sustain your family on it. So I'm not quite there yet. I'm working toward that goal. But I'm having a lot of fun along the way. Photography for me has always been like a major passion. I, like Sara, have memories of using cameras as a child and just shooting everything. And as I got older, like in high school, my friends and I were like super, like always taking pictures. And I just recently actually went through a giant bin of all these pictures I have from high school, because we were obsessed with it back then. And I kind of like forgot how important that was to us. But I got really super excited in college because that was my first time to take a photography class. And I learned how this was pre-digital. So I was shooting with a film camera, and I learned how to develop photography in the dark room, excuse me. We use Lightroom to develop now, so that's why I said it. But I used a dark room, and it was so exciting and so much fun. Just totally obsessed with it. But always kind of felt like, I didn't have that confidence to really pursue it as a career, even though it was completely my passion back in college. So I ended up getting my counseling degree, which, I love working with people, and that definitely plays a role in the work I do as a photographer for sure. But after several years in the world of counseling and several years being a stay-at-home mom and taking mazillions of pictures of my own children, I really came to a point where I realized, what I was doing wasn't really where my heart was, and it was leading me to something else. And so over the course of the pandemic, me, like everybody else, was kind of like rethinking things and figuring out, like it was really a big time to step back and say, am I doing what I want to be doing right now? And while I love working with families, I wanted to try working with them in a different way. And I wanted to do it in a way that was creative and following my passion. And so that's when I started, like Sarah, trying to get friends to let me take their pictures, kind of putting myself out there as a photographer, charging very little, just trying to gain experience, shoot as much as I could. And I would say it was a very slow kind of movement toward that. And a little bit, maybe like about a year and a half ago for me is where it really became like a regular gig for me. And I was able to, have people I don't know calling me and asking me to take their picture. So that was super exciting. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
That's great. I love that all three of you have a different path to kind of a similar end goal. And I love the stories about developing in the darkroom, because I also took a photography class in college and I also spent time in the darkroom. And my kids do not believe me that that's how you used to get pictures. So that is it's amazing how everybody on this call is not that old, in just a few years, how things have changed in the world of photography. So let's talk a little bit about some of those trends that we've seen in photography. I mean, we used to, obviously, digital has come a long way, but so has the styling. You used to see very formal portraits. You used to have to take your family to a studio if you wanted family pictures. And just in the last 5 or 10 years, all of that has changed. And now you see a lot more capturing those little moments, a lot more informal pictures. Let's talk a little bit about, why do you think you've seen that shift in the art of photography? So Bridget, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I think there are a few reasons why we've seen that shift. Obviously, everything that's traditional, in years changes. Things that your grandparents or parents were doing, you're no longer doing. But I think a lot of it is everyone has a phone now. Cameras especially are a lot more accessible to everyone. And so I feel like even as mothers or, someone that isn't an actual, like a professional photographer, we all have the ability to be a photographer in some capacity and just take hundreds and hundreds of photos. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I look at my phone because I don't know how to properly get it to the cloud, but I think there's like 90,000 photos or something ridiculous where I'm just constantly chasing my kids around, taking pictures. But I think now, people are like, what am I having for food today? And just taking pictures of that. So we're capturing everyday little moments where you don't have to worry about, I ran out of film. I can only use so many, perfectly orchestrated photos. So I think part of that is shifting a little bit. And then also people's mindset, we realize we want more authentic moments. And so just being with your kids, especially, I think even like parenting has changed the style a little bit, where not all parents, but some are more relaxed and everything. We just want to be more present with our kids. And so documenting those little moments, being present with our kids, if we're at a photography session, having it be more lifestyle and saying like, okay, like I'm going to let go of these thoughts of the perfect candid photos where I'm forcing my kid to smile, and just sort of going with the flow, loving on your kids, feeling their hair. Those are things that I really look for, those details, especially with my own kids. Like my oldest daughter has these beautiful highlights and just how the sun glimmers in her hair. I want to capture that. I want to capture my kids' little hands and remember how that feels. And so especially when I take photos, even of other families, I look for those little details because those moments are fleeting. But when you look back, I want you to be able to feel what that moment felt like and just sort of have it take you somewhere. And so, yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are shifting more from this perfectly posed photo into more of like a lifestyle approach.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that because I think that everything Bridget said, definitely, I totally feel that. And I think there's so many reasons why families are drawn to a more natural, unposed look. And we were talking the other day, it could be a big part too of social media culture and documenting life as it is. I think we've definitely seen a shift in people wanting to see something real and authentic and relatable, because that feels good when we recognize that in other people. And I also think that people like it because it's timeless. So I would say that the less posed, organic images, what we photographers now call lifestyle photos, is so much more timeless, because in a way, no matter what pose you choose, so if you're setting up a pose, it's going to be in some way a reflection of the current style, or the current style in the times. That's the way it works. So whereas when we give prompts as photographers that promote a more organic and natural connection, well, that's your family as you are. And so therefore it's more timeless. And I think it's why we like to see historical photos of people maybe doing the things we do, because we can see the humanity in it. And then we can kind of better understand this like full complex experience of child rearing and having a family and all of that good stuff. So I think it goes pretty deep. I think we're definitely noticing a shift in people, again, just wanting that authentic, those real connections.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on that a little bit, I think about who is taking pictures now. When you mentioned photography becoming much more accessible to people, you see a lot more women and moms leading into that career. And I love my husband and I appreciate it when he takes pictures, but what he sees is not the same thing I see. And so I think that also has really impacted the direction photography has gone. And so with that shift towards more lifestyle type pictures, why is that so important for families? Like, why as a parent, I mean, I know the answer, but tell our listeners, why is that important to document those things?
Yeah. So, wow, that is a really good question. And I do think it's one that we need to come back to time and time again. So, okay, one day down the road, I always think of this, 15 years from now, if I'm lucky, what sort of photos am I going to cherish? And I ask myself that by, I guess, asking another question, and that would be, what moments fill me up as a parent? Which I kind of like what you were saying about, the mom experience. I think that mothers naturally gravitate towards these maybe more tender moments. So anyways, so I always ask myself, like, what moments fill me up as a parent? And as a parent, and our kids are so amazing at filling us up. They have to be, because they deplete us too. So it's the inverse. And I always ask myself, like, what are the moments that you can't help but pause and take a breath and just think, wow, this is so beyond what I ever expected for my life or my family and just for me. So I'll tell you guys an example for me. So for me, every morning when my kids wake up and they crawl into our bed, they run across the house, they crawl into our bed and they get under the covers and they're all cozied and they put their head on, that crevice in your shoulder arm area. And they're just so still and sweet. And sometimes they'll just look at us and say, I love you. And I mean, it really fills me up. I mean, really, really fills me up in the morning. And when I think what photos I really would love to have and share with my children one day, it absolutely would be those moments of all of us together in a real moment, a real moment together, sharing a real moment together. I hope that makes sense, but we have no idea what the future will bring. We only know that we have right now, and we have a choice to celebrate the here and now with all of its mess. And these photos are important for that very, very reason, because one day we're going to look back and there'll be such a gift. We'll see that we as mothers, who I think often take the brunt of the emotional load of bringing children, like raising children, I shouldn't say that. My partner he takes the emotional load too. But anyways, we'll be able to look back and see that we just loved so fiercely and celebrated our family and our children in the absolutely best ways that we could. And we were there for each other. And I think that that's why these photos are important, because we're not going to be able to deny that our lives are beautiful right now. And I love capturing that for families. That's my goal. I mean, that is definitely the goal, is to look back and just see how beautiful our lives are right now.
I think that's so important. And I just want to add to it too, as we are grown-ups ourselves now, having the opportunity to be able to have photos of ourselves as children, like I'm not just taking these pictures for the mom right now or the dad. Like these pictures are designed to be kept in the family through years and years so that when these kids are grown-ups, they not only have those sweet memories of being in their home, but they can actually hold that in their hand and look back and, oh, I remember that toy I used to play with, or, like Sarah said, I remember how I used to snuggle in bed with mom and dad. So we're really, capturing history for people. And I would 1,000 times over rather look at a picture from my childhood or give someone else a picture from their childhood of us actually interacting as a family in the places that we loved, where we considered home, doing the things that we love to do. That is so much more valuable than just sitting there in a studio staring at the camera smiling. It won't capture it like that. Those documentary or lifestyle photos capture things.
Absolutely. Such great answers. I love Sarah's image of the kids snuggling. And I also think, as the mom of teenagers, I know Kim also has teenagers, it's important to remember when they're little, because they aren't always little and they get big and they kind of smell and they do things and they roll their eyes at you. So capture them while they're little and they're snuggly and they say, I love you in the morning.
You know what? But Shannon, we've got to capture it all too. Like, I mean, we want to hold on to those moments. I know the teenage years can be difficult, but they're not going to be teenagers forever either.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so let's talk about those little ones. And I know, as a mom who's raised a couple kids for a couple years, you can do everything you think you need to do to prep for a photo session. You can make sure they've had a nap. You can have an outfit that, doesn't have an itchy tag. You can make sure you have a snack in your pocket. But inevitably, there may be a meltdown. There's going to be somebody grumpy. It's going to happen. So as fellow moms, what can you tell people that can help ease their mind when it comes to scheduling that photo shoot or booking that photo shoot, even though your child might be in the middle of the terrible twos, or even though you might have a teenager who is just going to eye roll the whole time? Give us some mom advice as photographers in terms of easing that kind of burden.
Yeah, so this is Bridget, but yeah, this is something that comes up time and time again. And, especially when you have little ones or you have those teenagers that just aren't into it. And when you book a photo session, it is an investment that so you're going out on a limb, you're paying good money for this and everything. So of course you want your child, to look cute, smile, be happy, be in the moment and that sort of thing. It doesn't always happen. As moms, our kids sort of have their own attitudes. Some days they wake up and they're super sweet. Other days they wake up, like my youngest daughter, I call her Sour Patch Kid, because she's either sweet or she's very sassy and sour, and you just don't know which one you're going to get in that moment. So the biggest thing, aside from when we're prepping for a session, I do tell them, make sure your child, especially if they're younger, make sure they're fed, make sure they have a snack. Even for teenagers, make sure, they're fed, they have a drink. And for little ones, bring some water, bring a little snack if they need it and everything. But the biggest thing, I think, is for the parents is to just go in, just have the mindset, we have this time to check out. We're not worrying about work commitment, stress, what's going on our phone. This is our time to be together as a family. And so your family's exactly that, whether, they're in a happy mood or not. And they'll sort of go off of your vibes, where if you're telling your kid, get it together, you better smile, you're going to be happy for this session or whatever, that gets them in the wrong mindset too, where then they really don't want to be there. And a lot of times too, with little ones, they might be a little intimidated to see somebody new, somebody has a camera, or if they're like, what is that in their hands? I just tell them, I'm like, we're just going to go with the flow. So usually if we're at the beach or somewhere, I'll be like, let's just start out, let's explore. I'll introduce myself, make some jokes and stuff, but I'm like, mom, dad, just relax, put this on me. We'll try to get them happy. And, it can even just be like, let's go explore for some shells. Can you find me something really pretty and that sort of thing? And so just make it a game, have fun with your kids. Even if you're like, just check out for a few minutes. They'll be like, go chase your kid down the beach, get them and tickle them. You know your kids best and sort of what makes them giggle or happy and everything, but also just go in with the mindset that this is your time with your kids. Don't put too much pressure on getting those perfect photos. And especially with lifestyle photography, you can just sort of let go of that stress. And I realize that it's important for families they do sometimes want that perfect photo for grandma with everybody smiling. So I try to get those at the beginning and everything. And then I'm like, let's just go with the flow now. Let's have fun, take a lot of the stress off of it. And then just be with your babies and connect. Even if they're grown babies, they can have their little scowls and everything. And a lot of times too, if it's a toddler having a total meltdown, I'll be like, okay, mom and dad are going to have their photos taken right now. And so more times than not, they're like, well, we want to be a part of this. And then they kind of run over. But the worst thing I could say is don't go in with the mindset that you're going to yell at your child or scold them or be like, you're grounded later. If you had this attitude, just be happy. They play off your emotions too. If you're having fun and, you're having a good time and easygoing, then they'll follow that.
I think what Bridget said is so spot on. And I guess I'll add a little there too, because maybe I don't say this enough, because of course I've been on the other side, getting family photos, and it is good to get the reassurance. So if you're looking for reassurance, I would say your kids, however they show up, whatever mood they're in, there is absolutely nothing they can say or do or any type of behavior that will surprise us. So we are experienced photographers, but we also have children, and we totally understand. So, I think we all know what it's like. Kids change. They change every day, but they change from minute to minute. So you don't need to explain to us that, so-and-so is usually so smiley or agreeable or whatever it is, because I hear that, but it's really not necessary. Like I said, I've been in the shoes of getting family photos, and I know what it feels like when your kids are not cooperating. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. So we're like in the very, toddler itty bitty stage. So I know what it feels like when your kids aren't cooperating. Yet, if you have a good photographer, it just doesn't matter. It does not matter. I don't know how else to say it. There's no behavior that will sabotage a shoot. And though it can feel really chaotic, because it surely does, I would just say that my advice is to trust that we're family photographers, so we understand and are able to meet the challenges of photographing children and families. That's where we have tools in our toolbox. We don't step into a shoot expecting perfect, because that does not happen. That just never, it's an unrealistic expectation. And what Bridget said too, just to kind of put it back on, parents, without a doubt, it is never the kids. It is always us, the parents, who can't stop obsessing over redirecting our kids, because maybe we know what they're capable of. We know that they're capable of like a cuddly moment, but the sooner we can let go of that and get in, not bottleneck the session, then we get the photos we want. It's just, you just got to let go, let it be.
Those are some great tips. I totally can see what you mean by don't try to do direction, let it kind of be more organic. As someone who's very type A, that's very hard, but it's good to hear. And we are going to talk a little bit later about, what questions to ask when you're trying to hire a photographer, but that's some excellent points to ask. If you have, whatever your age of your kids, let your photographer know that, find out, what kind of families they've photographed, ask to see some of their work from what may have been a difficult session in terms of, the way the kids were interacting. So that's a really good tips. Along those same lines, a lot of photographers are now specializing in in-home sessions. If I'm nervous that my house isn't perfect, it's not a show house room, it's, we have laundry in the corner and dishes in the sink, What are some things you can tell people to kind of get past that and embrace those in-home sessions?
So this is Kim. I'm very passionate about getting in homes and working with families a lot for the same reasons, everything we just talked about before. Like it's so important to capture those moments of real life with families. I offer lifestyle in-home sessions, and I'm working on developing documentary sessions too. I'm doing some professional development in that area right now, and there's a difference between those two. So when you talk about getting your home ready, it kind of depends on what sort of session you're looking for and what the end product is you're looking to have. If I'm coming in to do a lifestyle at home session, then you do need to clean up parts of your house. You don't have to clean the whole house, but if you're looking to have those pretty, you know, clean looking images with a lot of beautiful natural light coming in, and people look like they're getting along with each other, then yes, we're going to set the stage for that to happen. And it's really fun, because it's a sprinkling of what happens at home, but also with a little bit of some assistance and planning in place. So if I'm going to do a lifestyle session with a family, I'm going to be making sure, we're planning beforehand. We're talking about what areas of the house we're going to shoot in. We're talking about how the light hits in those different areas of the house. We're going to talk about what activities you'll be engaging in as a family. We like to try to plan for activities that you really enjoy and have fun doing with your family. If it's playing a board game, cooking a meal together, playing in the backyard, any of those things. Little babies getting a bath or something like that, snuggling on the bed, like Sarah said, all those things we can shoot that during your lifestyle session. And you don't have to clean your whole house, but you do want to tidy up the areas that we're going to be working in. Moving into documentary photography in home sessions, you probably don't want to have it be a total disaster, but it is more just like it's real life. And those sorts of sessions, again, I'm looking to start working with families with this. So if families have an interest in it, I'd love to come and, work with you guys for this sort of session. But it's more just documenting straight up what life is like in your home. So, I may be there for a few hours documenting what your morning looks like, or even a full day, and just shooting all along the way, making breakfast, just all the things, getting up in the morning, going for a walk. All the things to really capture without much intervention at all on the part of the photographer, what life is truly like in your family, if you really want to tune into capturing as things actually exist. The lifestyle photography is also super fun, but a way I could describe it is more like your family doing the things you like to do if you were to be pictured in a magazine, because it's a little bit more perfect than what life is actually like, but it still, it results in beautiful images. I'll bring in some artificial light sometimes for those settings. It's just a little bit kind of like a cleaned up version of your life at home is what it is.
Those are great. I'm excited.
I want to say one more thing, Shannon. With both of these sessions, as we were just to piggyback on what we were saying before, we might go in with a plan and baby or toddler decides, no, we're not going to do that. And it's okay. I want to assure people that, again, as Sarah was saying, this is our field. We understand children. We know that we might have had a plan in place, and that plan can change. And somebody had an explosive diaper and we got to clean that up. That's all part of it. And I'm not going to go into a home and say, oh, I said I was going to leave at 1:00. So you got to finish up and make sure that baby's cleaned up before then. We just cannot work like that in order to capture what we're trying to capture. I don't want to work that way. So I'm going to be there supporting your family and, trying to make sure we capture what our goal was.
That's some great info on the difference between like you said, the documentary and the more lifestyle. I'm excited to see the documentary and see what you produce, because I think that that's a really interesting way to capture your family. It's a little bit grittier.
Yeah, I have to say, it's an area that I've been kind of obsessed with for a long time, but, I don't know, I kind of felt like I needed to start at the other side of things first, but I've just started, as I said, some professional development. I've been snapping some pictures, even just on my cell phone, that are just stepping back and looking at scenes right now and kind of capturing the whole environment of what's going on. And I'm super excited. So I can't wait to do more of this.
That's awesome. Okay, for the next question, I want to be sure everybody answers because I'm very curious to see what your response is. We've talked about a lot of different types of photography styles and then also situations, and some of you do weddings, some of you do more baby and family. There's one photographer I talked to that just absolutely will not do a wedding. That's not her thing. She doesn't like it. So for you and your business, in your personal preference, tell us a little bit what your favorite type of photography session is. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of touch on, because I know all three of you use drones in your photography business. So tell us a little bit about that as well. We have a drone and I rarely use it because it intimidates me. So talk to us a little bit about the drone usage also. But I also want to hear, what's your personal favorite type of session to do?
Yeah, first of all, you got to use your drone. It is so much simpler than you think it is. I honestly think this is a tricky question because I think the three of us, so I'm going to speak for the three of us from how from the conversations we've had. I think we all love different types of photography for different reasons, and they kind of pull different parts of us out. The energy that you need for a wedding is a bit different than the energy you need for celebrating a little one turning one. So it does pull different parts out of you. And I think we're always trying to evolve and explore different avenues of photography. So like drones. So I offer drone. I know that Bridget and Kim do as well. And that just came out of wanting to find a way to capture families in a different perspective. And how Kim is saying, she's using her phone, she's pulling back and really looking at the environment. And that's what got me interested in drone work. I also have an underwater housing. So I love to actually get in the water with some of my, more ocean loving families. That does appeal to, a lot of people. It appeals to me. So I love doing that. And kind of a side note, I just launched a school photography company. So a part of the reason I did that too is because I love traditional portraits of children. And I think that school photography is such a great opportunity to get those beautiful quality, just classic timeless portraits. So I love that. And I love it all for different reasons. So my goal is always just to stay open to changing technology, to different genres. And it kind of comes back to me, again, not bottlenecking myself. So I don't get a lot of joy from being, niche specific. And I find that a lot of times I'll say, oh, I wouldn't do that. Like, that's not my type of photography. And then I go do it and I'm about to, pivot and make my whole business revolving around it. So I think it's really fun. It's full of surprises.
Well, as you heard me gushing all over the documentary photography, the lifestyle photography, that's probably the thing that gets me going the most. I'm really kind of obsessed about it. But like Sarah said, there are so many, photography is such a business where you can do so many different things and it's such a different experience depending on what you happen to be shooting. She touched on the drone. That's been fun. And Sarah's really great with her drone. She actually taught an online class on drone photography, which I took. And yay. But couples, I'll let Bridget probably talk some more about couples too. They're so much fun to work with because their emotions are just right there on the surface and they're so loving and excited, especially you get those couples that are leading up to their wedding or something. It's super fun. The other thing that I have found that I really have enjoyed too recently, and it's so different from the documentary stuff, but is branding photography. I've been doing a lot of recently. I just did a session for a surf bracelet company called Hang Loose Bands, and I had so much fun, from styling it and finding the models to scouting out different locations, and it was just a blast. So again, it is really hard to pin down one thing because when you love photography, you just there's so many different areas you could just go into.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what they were saying, this is Bridget. I kind of dabble in a few different areas of photography. So obviously I love lifestyle family photography. I'm a mom, I understand the importance of that. I do a lot of senior sessions. I live in St. Augustine, so I love utilizing, the whole Northeast Florida area, but downtown St. Augustine, that sort of thing. That's a big moment in their lives to sort of document that next chapter for them. And that's sort of what all areas of photography, you're documenting these super important chapters. And so, I do a lot of couple work, engagements. I do take on not a lot, but maybe like 5 to 10 smaller weddings or elopements a year, because I do find that's important too. That's sometimes engagement, and then weddings, that's a huge stepping stone into then, okay, they're going to start a family eventually. And so I love, whether it's love between a family, love between couples, love for yourself that you're accomplishing this huge thing of graduating. But I will say my favorite, and I do have a favorite, I love them all, but maternity photography is my personal favorite. I have 3 kids. I did not have a maternity session with any of them. And that's my biggest regret. I can't go back now and have that. I think I have just a couple like selfies I took. And I was like, what was I thinking, in that moment? But it was sort of like, where your body's changing and that kind of thing. And then so you're feeling like maybe a little bit hard on yourself or whatever. And so now looking back, I'm like, wow, like women are amazing. Our bodies, we grew and did this thing, and now we're raising our kids and everything. And I'm like, I should have been in that moment. And so now for me, it's really important for women to see the beauty in themselves and the power that they have. And I'm like, you're creating a human being, your body is doing this, you're powerful, you're amazing. And so even with maternity sessions, oftentimes I have them, if they have other kids, they bring their kids, they bring their partner and everything. And a lot of the prompts that I give, because I really like to evoke a lot of emotion, whether it's family sessions or maternity, but I'll just kind of be like, just cradle your bump there and everything, and just close your eyes, just take a moment. What do you envision for this child? Like, what do you want for their life? What do you want them to know, like how much you love them and that sort of thing? Or like, just think about how strong you are. Take a moment to yourself, look out at the ocean, picture your life as being this incredible thing. And so that for me is something I'm very passionate about. And then obviously that turns into little babies and families. And then so it's really cool to see just the whole documentation year after year of how they're changing. So then like, here they are, they just met, we're doing date night sessions, they got engaged, they got married, they are having a baby. Now you get to see these little kids. So it's really cool to see the progression of families and how they come about. And so I just get really excited about that. And then with the drone photography too, I also took Sarah's amazing course. And that just gives a cool perspective. We all live in such a beautiful place in Northeast Florida. You get to have this perspective, bird's eye view of the gorgeous ocean, the teal water and everything, the beautiful beaches. And it just kind of shows and captures that landscape of where we live. Or if people are just on vacation or something, it gets to, they have this beautiful photo of like, wow, we were here. We're so tiny in the world. And then we're in this beautiful space. So that's just a little bit about what I like to capture.
Sarah, are you going to offer the drone course again? Because now I feel like I should take that so I could use my drone more.
Yeah, it's actually hosted through Unraveled Academy. So if anybody is an aspiring drone photographer or photographer, Unraveled Academy is a great resource. They have lots of videos and just great information. So I released a course with them, and it is packed full of information on how to easily and simply use that drone, which you got to do.
That's awesome. I'll get the link from you and we'll put that in our show notes for everybody too.
Okay, cool. Great.
So obviously your photographer is responsible for taking pictures and delivering a gallery to you. That's pretty much assumed. But what are some other services you should kind of look for leading up to that shoot?
So this is Kim. Basically, like when people first reach out to me about a session, I try to get in touch with them right away and as soon as possible set up a phone call with them. And I really feel like a lot of what you're going to get out of the session with your clients starts when you first meet them on the phone or in person, because I want to jump in right away and start building that relationship with them. And I have a lot of fun talking with my clients and just like these people, you've never met them before. And then you just end up talking about whatever, they're your kids or whatever. And it's really fun getting to know the different people through photography. During that conversation, I'm going to find out who's going to be included in the session, and does anybody have any special needs? So your photographer should be looking out for you. Do you have a child that has special needs? Do you have a grandparent that's coming along that has some mobility issues? So those are some of the things that we want to start helping you out with as your photographer. I also want to help people kind of narrow down the sort of shoot. We were talking about all these different kinds of shoots, like documentary, lifestyle. You want to do something outdoors, indoors. And then they have an idea about that, your photographer should really help you get that location that's just right for you. So people might call me and say, I want to do something at a beach. And then I'll start naming off like all my favorite beaches to shoot at and describing them for them. I'll oftentimes send people pictures of some different shoots that I've done at different locations, different parks, different beaches, so they can kind of really get a feel. We should be sharing information with them about the locations. Like, is this a spot where you really need to load up on the bug spray? Or what have you. And also I keep some resources right on my website for anybody can jump on and read about these, but it's things like how to prepare for your session. We talked about kind of avoiding that hangry feeling at the sessions, or getting people well rested, relaxing, emptying your pockets before you go to a session. These are all the sorts of things like advice we've got to give people before they show up session ready. We also, as a photographer, should be making sure that your session is going to turn out great by keeping an eye on the weather. We spend a lot of time looking at our weather apps, a lot of times just constantly looking at our weather apps, trying to make sure that our session is timed at a time, where, like, for instance, like even on a beach, like I want to make sure the tide's at the right spot for you. I want to make sure that the sun's going to be setting at the right time that we're out there. I want to make sure that the weather looks good. And so all these things, and if we need to reschedule, we want to work with you on that if it looks like things aren't going to work out for your day. We also help with clothing selection, but I know Bridget has some stuff she wanted to add to this. All three of us subscribe to a service that I think Bridget's going to talk a little bit about too.
Hey, yeah, this is Bridget. But yeah, I think all of us sort of subscribe. It's just a styling service called Style and Select. And so basically, when I have a client book with me or we're beginning to chat and that sort of thing, once I always send over a questionnaire, just asking names, ages, that sort of thing, locations, everything that Kim sort of touched on. And then also styling, it isn't everything, and so to some families that maybe aren't able to or whatever, like, don't feel like you can't have a photo session if you don't have a perfectly styled family. But I will say, even just having the right kind of texture, more like coordination instead of matchy, like that makes a huge difference. And so when I send out, it's just a sort of code that they can use. They can plug into the Style and Select website. Basically, it'll say like how many family members you have, their ages, which gives kind of the sizes, what kind of colors, do you like? And so it gives you a few options. You pick a few different colors that you're drawn to or that maybe go with your home. And then it auto populates some different outfit choices. You can purchase them directly from that site. But usually what I say is, I'm like, go ahead and create these outfit choices. You make a few different selections, of things that you like for your family, and you can see them all together. And I'm like, you don't have to go buy everything, on top of that, but you can be like, okay, what do I have in our closet that's sort of similar to this? Or maybe I could find something, at like Target or somewhere that kind of goes with that, or thrift that and everything. And so a lot of, at least my editing style, I usually really love to shoot more earthy tones, or darker rust colors, that sort of thing. I typically advise away from bright neon colors or anything with graphic logos or words on the front of the shirt. And so, yeah, styling, it is important. It's not everything, some people just aren't super into that. And so I don't want that to like hold you off from having a session, but there are ways. We all have plenty of clothes in our closet. You could even utilize that service and just sort of see what you have in your closet. Or if you wanted to go all the way, you can be like, yeah, I can just purchase that directly there. And so we all send that out as a part of their service. And then just touching back on what we sort of do getting ready for a session. I send out a questionnaire, just basically asking their names, ages of who's going to be at the session. I really try to get in my head to sort of know people, especially when I'm on the way to a session, if it's like an extended family of like 20 people, because I don't want to waste time like being like, okay, who is this and how are they related to whoever, for like groupings and that sort of thing. And then also, I ask, what are important moments that you're looking for? And especially for me, I like to shoot a lot of details. So I get the big moments too, but I'll be like, is there something special in particular that you do with your children? And so I just had a session. I asked that. And then at the session, she was like, this is really important to us. And I wouldn't have even thought of this to have this documented, but her and her daughter have this special handshake that they made up. So I'm like, go ahead, do that handshake. And so they had so much fun, and their daughter's really laughing and just capturing those moments. And then the mom's like, this is going to mean so much to me, even when she's a grown up, and be like, we had that special handshake, like there it is. So yeah, it's just a lot of things leading up to a session that your photographer can do to get to know you, to choose the perfect type of session for you, wonderful location, help you with styling. And that's what your photographer is there to help it run as smoothly as possible and to guide you every step of the way, just to make sure you get the session of your dreams.
And just to follow up on that, when people get to the session, I'm like, okay, the hard part's over. You're here. Like everything is getting ready for the session. And like my kids grew up in Montessori school, and there's a big emphasis on preparing the environment. And I think that that's, key here with photographers. Your photographers should do everything they can leading up to that point to get us ready for success. So we talk about, making sure emotionally, sleep-wise, food-wise, everybody's in good shape. You're dressed, like Bridget said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can come out of your closet, but you've paid attention to what you're wearing. It does make an impact for sure on the session. We've got the location, we've got the weather, all of these things are the components that are going into trying to create a lovely session for you. And we want to check off as many of those boxes as we can before you even arrive.
Those are great tips. A photographer once told me they recommend as a mom, you always start with your pickiest child in terms of what they're going to wear. And it was like life-changing for me, because like my son will wear literally whatever I throw on his bed. My daughter has a lot more opinions on the matter. So we always start with her. And so it's like, what's she going to wear? Okay, let's build around what everybody else is going to wear. But those are some great tips. And I love the idea of preparing the environment for success, because you're right. If you've done all the homework, you show up and let your photographer do their job. Okay, so you mentioned some spots around town, the beach, downtown photo shoots. And I know you guys are kind of stretched from St. Augustine up through Jacksonville, but what are some of your go-to locations for family photos that just kind of allow you to capture those moments, but then also give you a beautiful backdrop?
Oh, well, I'll start. So I want to say that I lived in Colorado for 10 years. It's actually where I started my photography business. And I remember moving to Florida thinking, wow, this place has so much variety. I thought it was just so, I thought it was just so much more rich in variety. We have so much varying landscapes in such a small, region. So it's pretty incredible. So you can find a location for basically anything you're looking for. And we have, I'm not sure what the other ladies are going to say, but I love the big, beautiful sand dunes at Guana. It's one of my favorite places to shoot. It's beautiful. So that's a beach. So love the beaches. And then this is kind of a random spot, but there's a place called Camp Milton that I really love too. And it has like these really great sort of tall grass, Western vibes. And that's I don't want to say it's not very Florida, because it's Florida, it's in Florida, but it's not a very typical landscape that you see. So I really like that as well.
So I have to agree with Sara. Like I grew up in Jacksonville, and I actually didn't realize how many amazing places we have in our town, or value them as much as I do since I became a photographer. There's so many different spots you can shoot, and there is like a mood and a vibe for like whatever you're looking for, because we have like, you could be shooting downtown on a rooftop, or you could be shooting in historic St. Augustine. I love Guana Beach too. You cannot use your drone everywhere. Guana is a place where we can use the drone, because there's some restrictions about like different spots where you can use drones at, and you can't do it in a state park, as you know, Shannon. I think we had a drone fly over us during our state park session a couple of years ago. But I'm going to say, if you nail me down, one thing that's so unique and spectacular is up at Big Talbot Island, and those huge driftwood trees all over the beaches. I mean, it's so spectacular. I love shooting up there, and there's really nothing like it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I agree just what they're saying. We are so fortunate to live in such a beautiful area where we have like gorgeous springs, within like an hour or so drive. We have beautiful beaches. We have sort of like even near me a little bit, just a little further drive from St. Augustine is Ravine Gardens. And I remember the first time I went there just to sort of hike with the kids, I'm like, this looks like Jurassic Park because I'm like, this does not look like Florida, these deep ravines and suspension bridges, and so I'm like, what is that? So I know all three of us and all photographers in general, we spend a lot of time location scouting because even though we live in sort of the smaller region and everything, and there are a lot of photographers, so we even try to spend time trying to find places that maybe are new to us or just to give a different look and everything. And something I do, even just with my kids, and then people will be like, where is that? I find things that aren't typically what you would think are beautiful, and so sometimes it's like the side of the road, or I shoot a lot of times, and I've shot clients here too now at this bike trail near my house. It's right off the parking lot that has these huge like boulders and tall grass that are probably actually weeds, but it looks really cool when you shoot there. And so I'd say too, like, trust your photographer's eye and their vision. Like, we can see things in a different way that maybe sometimes you can't. So if you do have a vision and you're like, well, I really want this field. I get a lot. I really want like this wheat field. And I'm like, well, we don't really have that in Florida, but I can show you the side of the road spot that'll give you that same sort of look. And I'm like, just trust us. It may look a little sketchy when you get there. And so we're blessed with beautiful places, but also if you want something a little bit unique or more industrial, you can even shoot like, I've seen people shoot with these like cardboard boxes smashed up behind Walmart and everything if you're wanting like this unique kind of senior session or whatever. So there's a look for everybody within not that far of a drive. And so you can just kind of tell us your vibe and vision and everything, and then your photographer can find the perfect spot for you.
So many good suggestions. I'll have to start thinking about where we'll do our next set of pictures. Okay, so I know you're not all in like Jacksonville proper, but I always ask what your favorite thing is about being a mom in Jacksonville. So tell me your favorite thing about being a mom wherever you call home in North Florida.
Oh man, there are so many just awesome things about living here. So the beach, the waterways, we have beautiful year-round weather. It checks so many boxes. We love where we live. So we have lots of bike paths near our house, and the old growth oak trees and the turtles. And I mean, there's so much here. It's such a melting pot, and there's so much variety. And I feel like more than other places, I mean, I'm just biased now, but I feel like more than other places, there's something for everybody, depending on, what you're into. It really is an awesome place to raise a family.
It's Bridget. Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough I'm born and raised in St. Augustine, Florida. My family's lived here for generations. Growing up, I can remember just like small town vibes where I'm like, I'm going to get out of St. Augustine. And so I did move to Southern California for like 5 years, but I made it back home. And once you leave, you're like, there's no place like Northeast Florida. And so we're so fortunate that, again, just within a short drive, you can go a little bit of everywhere, whether you want to go see the springs. I took my kids this past weekend to see the manatees at Blue Springs. And so just even in St. Augustine, my kids go to school downtown St. Augustine. So I pick them up. We kind of walk down St. George Street or run to the fort. That's kind of like their backyard and how I grew up too. And so it's just really special to see and share that. But I think just as Floridians, it's something where you can be outside majority of the year, enjoying the beaches, going for little nature hikes, teaching your kids being outside, identifying, like my son loves little insects and animals and everything. And so we just try to be outside as much as possible. And we're just so fortunate to live in a truly beautiful place and just be with our family, or even just go off by yourself. Like sometimes moms just need a little bit of meditation or one-on-one time, and you can just go sit on the beach and listen to the sounds of the waves. So yeah, being a Floridian and a mom, it's just a beautiful place, and we're very fortunate to live here and call this home.
Yes, and like Bridget, I was out in California for a little while too, and then came back to Jacksonville when I was ready to have children. And it's been a really great spot to raise kids. We're lucky we live in Neptune Beach, so the beach is just a walk away from us. We can walk right down the street to shops and restaurants. And I mean, luckily I was positioned in a spot where we could walk to the library. And I love our library system in Jacksonville. We were at story time like every single week when my kids were little. So there's just great fun, programs and activities for families here too. There's always some sort of event going on. We have our own football team here. And as I said before, like just being a photographer has really made me open my eyes, even though I grew up here, to all the different fun places and neighborhoods around Jacksonville. I mean, we really have it all. We've got beaches and parks and these cool neighborhoods and museums and restaurants and theaters. And, as Sarah said too, like tons of like beautiful outdoor space. Hannah Park is just, I can run down to Hannah Park from my house. So it's just spectacular that we can access all these wonderful places. It is, I'm really glad I came back to Jacksonville to have some babies.
We are glad too that you came back. So before we close it out for today, I would like everybody to tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Perfect. Instagram is where I'm the most active as far as social media goes. So you can definitely find me on there. I would love that. I'm sure you could put all this in the show notes as well, but it's Sara L.Price, Sara, no H, L.Price, and my website. So saralprice.com.
Yeah, so this is Bridget, and so these ladies are trying to force me to be better with this. So I am on Instagram, not as frequently as most, because social media isn't my biggest strength, but I'm trying to be better at it. But you can reach me through Instagram. It's bridget.gabrielle.photography. And then also I have a Facebook business page, Bridget Gabrielle Photography. But the best way to reach me is through my website. So it's bridgetgabriellephotography.com.
And this is Kim, and you can reach me on Instagram at Kim Kelly Photo Jax, or my website is kimkellyphotography.com.
And thank you so much, Kim, Sarah, and Bridget, for being our guests today. I am super excited about this episode. We'll put links to all your websites and your social medias in our show notes so people can access them. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode of Jacksonville Momcast, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow us at Jacksonville Momcast on all the social medias for show updates and more information about our guests. To learn more about what you heard today, visit our show notes at jacksonvillemomcast.com. Thanks for listening.